Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending upon where you are, and welcome to the very first Palm City podcast, where we talk about all things related to the life sciences and healthcare industry. Today, we're joined by a good friend and colleague, David Davis, founder of DGD Solutions. Welcome, Dave. Thanks for joining.
Hey, welcome, Ed. I appreciate it. I look forward to our discussion today.
Yeah. Today should be pretty interesting. We're going to talk about corrective actions, preventative actions, some very specific parts of that. David's actually going to take us through the proper way to create a CAPA, and we'll talk about some of the not so proper CAPAs that we've encountered along the way. David, you want to give us a quick intro about yourself and your background?
Sure. Yeah, I'm David Davis of DGD Solutions. Founded my consulting company about 5 years ago, 2021, actually. So 4 years ago. And basically, my experience, I consider myself a quality expert and an operation expert because I've spent a lot of time in operations. So one of the things that I kind of bring to the table for my clients is that ability to provide the flexibility and operations yet compliant with the regulatory requirements. So that's kind of my claim to fame, so to speak, and it seems to work well.
And CAPAs is a big one. I like to cruise the FDA warning letter page, the FDA.gov, and it's just amazing what you see out there. I was doing a search just for CAPA related warning letters in 2024. This was a common theme here in the warning letter: failure to establish procedures for corrective and preventative actions as required by 820.100A. And here's another nuance to that. Your CAPA procedure did not adequately establish how to analyze quality data to identify existing and potential cause of non-conforming products or other quality problems.
All right, we just checked the root cause investigation box. There we go.
Yeah. And then there was another one. This one was very common as well. A failure to adequately verify the effectiveness of corrective and preventative actions. They cite specific ones for this particular customer.
Yeah,
So,
that verification of effectiveness one I should have brought in. I should have said the three things, but yeah, that would have been the third one I'd bring up because that one is a major shortfall in most clients that I see.
yeah. And out of the 16 warning letters that I've reviewed, this was pretty much in every single one of them. And then there's this one. Your firm does not identify conducting retrospective analysis for all past CAPAs to determine impact of the lack of data analysis, whether appropriate corrective actions and root cause.
Yep.
Your firm did not identify what actions it would take to address the lack of implementation of the identified corrective actions and whether that issue is a systemic problem.
Yeah, that's a good one because I've got a client that I'm working with right now, and I'm teaching them this specific principle. If we identify a problem in our root cause, we have to look at it from a systemic point. And clients typically get caught up into the minutia of the details that the FDA finds, and they sometimes forget the overarching systemic issue, and you'll get hammered with that every time in subsequent inspections if you don't address it.
Yeah, and I was actually going to mention the opposite, whereas I see it a lot in the audits that we do. Pardon me. Is that they take their CAPA procedures clearly just to check the box, right?
Yes.
There's, it maybe has 1 page with the bare minimum, and then when they actually have a CAPA, and if they get an inspection, they don't understand why they get hammered. And so I write them up for it. Maybe it's a minor observation, and the response that I often get is, Well, we've been audited before and no one's brought it up before,
Oh, that's a common one. Yes.
or the FDA has inspected us before and
Yeah.
they didn't mention it.
Yeah.
And, and you and I went through that very issue
Often.
on an audit. And what was our response to that?
Well, so basically, the next auditor may catch it. If we're catching it, it's a problem, right? So, this goes into that situation where you're looking at a sample size, and a lot of inspectors, especially with FDA inspectors, a lot of times they have a theme of the year, and they're focusing on that theme of the year. They may not catch certain other things because they're focused on others, but and that's the also auditor luck of the draw too, right? So bottom line is in every FDA warning letter, 483 letter communication I've ever seen, they always say this is not everything, and you are responsible for meeting all of the regulation adequately. So that's common.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Well, if I recall, Dave, you were going to actually take us through populating a CAPA form.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Absolutely. I can
Let me
do
see.
that. Can you see my screen?
I sure can.
Okay. So I kind of mentioned earlier that two things that I see as being major issues within most clients when it comes to CAPA. And one is identifying the problem and doing adequate root cause investigation. Okay, so that's some of the common things that I even see in the 483s. You root cause, and you showed an example. The root cause investigation was not adequate, right? So, and I'm getting ready to get interrupted, just so you know.
Okay.
So maybe we should break here, and
Okay.
then I can get into this. Yeah, because they just pulled into the driveway.
Yeah. So as we were saying, it's really interesting how doing a CAPA properly is often underestimated or
Yes.
overlooked. But they quickly find religion when the FDA comes in and says, nope, this doesn't cut it. And here's a
Yeah.
483. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
So, and I know you and I have done that several times. So, you're actually, if memory serves, you're actually building a new CAPA process for one of your clients, right?
Yes, absolutely. I yeah, so working with a client right now where their CAPA program was just not adequate at all. And in fairness to this client, they're not typically in your pharmaceutical or medical device industry. However, they found themselves in trouble with the FDA because they are actually a chemical company that makes antibacterial soap, hand
Ah,
soap. Well, to make it antibacterial, they use an active pharmaceutical ingredient, which now puts them in the whole world of being a drug manufacturer. And they had no expertise, no understanding of it. They have a inadequate QMS, because they're not really in aerospace. They're not in. I mean, they could go 9001, but they really haven't had a lot of need. It's the type of customer that they are. So, with that said, I had an opportunity, and I'm currently working with them to educate them on proper CAPA procedures. So the first thing I did was rewrite their CAPA procedure, redo their CAPA form, and I'm taking them through the proper way to have a CAPA. And the beauty of this is for them, because this is their second 483 from the FDA for all repeat findings.
oh boy.
So we're going to fix it correctly. And then what will happen is, because of the stark difference between what they had and then what they will present to the FDA the next time the FDA is in, is like, oh wow, you all really took it seriously and stepped it up a notch, and it's going to impress them. So, but mainly because they're actually doing what the regulations expect you to do. So with that, and I had this similar problem on a client you and I had up in Boston area, Ed, where they got a 483 and they asked us to step in and help them draft the 483 response. Well, okay, again, their CAPA process was okay, but their execution and their understanding of what to do within that process was severely lacking. So what we have to do is make sure we start out the gate right. And that's developing a problem statement.
Yeah.
That's, if you don't understand your problem, it's bad. What were you going to say?
I remember that project, and I believe it was one of those situations where you had to save the client from themselves.
Yes.
They felt strongly about a certain part of that response, and you you respectfully
Yes.
pushed back and said, if you do that, that's not going to cut. You're going to invite more
Right.
investigation. So
Yes.
good on you
Yep.
for doing that. And they were so
Yep.
thankful that they sent a testimonial.
Yes. Yes, they
So
did.
that was great.
That's kind of, at the end of the day, that's our satisfaction as being consultants. And what we do is I personally like seeing the light bulb click on when the client gets what I'm saying, and they're learning and they're bringing it. But then at the end of a project, when they say, we're so glad that you made us change our mind, So that's
Persuade.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and it's just because of our experience, within other companies and seeing a lot of the wrong things to do.
Yep.
So I mean, we wouldn't have jobs if everybody did it right.
That's true. That's
So,
right. Wouldn't need us.
No, wouldn't need us. So we all have something to learn, and I learned something on every project. And as a matter of fact, I've got a CAPA form. If you want me to, I'll show right now what I'm talking about in developing a problem statement.
That would be great. There's no confidential information, no client information, right?
Now, I've redacted. I have redacted. Now, I've got I took the customer name out, but it's a legitimate CAPA that I'm working on currently.
Okay.
So, and I took the client's name off of it, so you can't really see it. But, and do I need to blow this up? Is it pretty good, or?
I think
We'll
it's
make it
pretty
bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
Make
that's
it
perfect.
bigger.
Right there. Oh,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
All right. Good. So one of the things I did for this client is change their CAPA form. And as I've been working this CAPA, I've already found other revisions I want to make down the road. But for the case of this podcast, our stage one is description, basically, and you'll see that I've got it right here. The description, this is the description of the problem, right? And one of the things I'm very specific on is accurate problem statement. I can't emphasize that enough, because I don't know how many clients I've been to that and this is an actual 483 observation. I have watched so many clients just put that in there and address the observation. But that doesn't cut it. You have to define the problem, right? Because the FDA is only giving you their observations, which are symptoms of what the actual problem is. So you have to kind of look at it and interpret what is the problem. So like in this case, specifically, if you look at this observation 3, there's a lot in here. They failed to ensure batch production records contained all the information. They failed to ensure product reviews are performed. They failed to ensure appropriate validation and qualification protocols are in place. That's so, and you see, they document it. This is a repeat observation.
Oh, wow.
This is not good. Failure to establish a sample retention program, representative of the distributed finished product. There's a lot in here.
Yeah.
Right? This is not just one CAPA to address observation 3. This really goes into about 4 or 5, 6 CAPAs,
Yeah, I see that.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to bring it back out. So when we establish this CAPA, the problem statement is this right here, where I say acceptance activities of product, including raw materials, components, packaging materials, incoming, in process, and finished products have not been clearly established. Now, Dave, how in the world did you come up with that? You want to ask that question, Ed?
Sure. Dave, how in the world did you come up with that?
Well, so this is where consulting and expertise comes in, Ed. So this particular CAPA is to address observation 3F. And if we look at 3F, failure to conduct testing on incoming component to verify identity of the component. This is a repeat observation. Okay. So when I see this, conduct testing of incoming component to verify identity of the component, you have to read into that. That's acceptance activities. That's release activities. All right. So systemically, we have to look at all release activities. So in the medical device world, we call it acceptance activities. And I go back to 21 CFR Part 820, and I look at those guidance. And when I look at those guidance, they help guide you even in the pharmaceutical world on release activities, because acceptance and release are basically synonymous within FDA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I come up with this problem statement: acceptance activities of product. Now, I listed everything in the CAPA because everything should be addressed as an issue. And this is where I'm talking about developing your problem statement. There has to be a lot of thought into it in order to guide you appropriately in corrective and preventative actions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, what could you add to that, Ed, in your experience?
Not much really. You've very precisely identified the problem, and now it's time to do the investigation and all that good stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, by doing this, and the client we were talking about in Boston, where they ended up giving us the testimonial, this one thing is why we got the testimonial, because this one thing got their focus the right way. And then all of their updates to the FDA were very simplistic in saying, okay, this is what we determined. This was our action plan, and here's where we are. And that testimonial is about, had Dave not insisted that we get this problem statement correct, and then everything focuses back to the problem statement, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Forgive me, I have the world ending outside my
All right.
my window here today. Okay.
If it's good enough, I want to see it.
Whatever it is, it's over now. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So that's stage one. That is stage one of a CAPA, where you clearly define the problem. We're going to move on to stage two. And stage two is a threefold issue where you deal with containment, your risk assessment, and the root cause investigation. A lot of clients don't really spend any time on risk assessment.
Yeah.
They don't even really clearly indicate their action items or their immediate actions, corrections, or containment activities. So you don't know what they did. Did you quarantine the product? Did you quit manufacturing? Did you, what did you do? As soon as you identified the problem, what did you do? And that's your containment. So in this case, and, we stopped production of the antibacterial hand soap. We retrained our staff on testing and release of components. They had an SOP, they just weren't following it. They're performing daily checks of the.
Come on, Dave. That never happens. It's not like
No.
having SOP. People don't follow it. Come on now.
That's right. And look here, the next one. Now they're going to check and make sure that everybody's following the SOP. This is a different SOP. But what I found with this client, the person that was performing the daily checks is no longer employed there, and they can't find any records of his daily checks.
Oh, wow.
Now, we've got it. We reported it to the FDA, so I've got it in the CAPA. And that's something else. That's something else I really want to point out, Ed. The CAPA has got to be your Bible. It's got to be your main document that you pull information from. So as I was developing this CAPA, I went back and I looked at their responses to the FDA. They had responses and commitments to the FDA that they didn't capture in the original CAPA form. So they lost track. The next time it wasn't in the update. So their updates to the FDA are all over the map. There's different things in each update they've given the FDA, and we have to look at all of them and compile them all together and get them in one centralized spot. Now, I wouldn't expect that in a seasoned pharmaceutical or med device company, right? They're not, their structured FDA responses be a little bit better than a client that has no experience whatsoever. So that's something I thought, that's something we need to really consider. If the CAPA is your guidance, then you're always going to be consistent. That's your source. That's where you document everything. That's where you report from. So that's important here. Your risk assessment. If your company has a risk management procedure, by golly, utilize it. And that's what I did with these guys. I used their risk management procedure, and I'm like, okay, I'm focusing on two things. I'm going to focus on product quality and regulatory. And I listed what I thought were the product quality issues and the regulatory issues. And then using their definitions within their procedure, the severity, probability, and detection on this, just so that we look at these and see, okay, what is our risk? Okay. Final piece of this is the root cause investigation. And Ed, I'm going to tell you right now, we need to do a podcast of root cause investigation.
Sure.
Just strictly that. I know companies have root cause investigation SOPs for people to go sort from. Some of them included in their CAPA procedure, but honestly, doing a true root cause investigation and utilizing qualified tools, and what I mean by qualified tools, fishbone diagram, 5 whys, fact statements, is not, 6M, all of those tools that are very well known in the continuous improvement world are what the FDA would expect you to adopt and see. Now, you can do a lot of root cause investigation. Unfortunately, I wasn't at this client when all of this went down. So I don't have all the details in the root cause investigation that I really, really would like to document. We looked at this document. We looked at all of these things. You can get it really, really detailed and document everything there. But at the end of the day, before your final root cause, you've got to do one of these analysis. And here I use the 5 whys, but it only took me 3 to get to the root cause, which in this company, as I mentioned earlier, they're a chemical company. They're not in the world of FDA. So if you look at my root cause, executive management was not aware of the regulatory requirements. So that's the common theme through these CAPAs as we work through them for the FDA.
And that's a tough thing to put on paper. I mean, it's good that your client agreed to do that. I mean, I've had similar situations where the client says, "Oh, I'm not admitting to that. I'm not putting that on paper," and it's like, well, then you're not really addressing the root cause.
That's exactly right. And the neat thing about this, not neat, but the ironic thing, this is my second client within a year that this is the root cause.
Wow. Sad but true.
It is. It is. So that's kind of the elements of that side of it. Then Then you got to develop your action plan. Now, how many companies, oh, we know what the problem is, we're going to go fix it. And they go wild, wild west, shooting from the hip and fixing, doing all kinds of activities so that they can say they got stuff done, right?
Ready, shoot, aim.
Yes, exactly. And they haven't even developed it on the action plan. And you got to develop an action plan and approve that action plan before you start executing corrective action or preventive action. You got to do that.
That's another thing I see in many of our projects, especially remediation project, is the mad scramble. Just do it. Just put something in there. Just
Yeah.
We just got to respond. We got to respond as quickly as possible. And I try to tell them, a bad response is worse
Yes.
than a late response.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you don't want to do that. You want to think it through. Take the time. I always call it being thoughtful and deliberate. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's exactly my current client. That's exactly what I'm getting them to realize. Okay, let's look at this. Let's see it. Let's look at all of the issues, right? So here's an interesting thing. So when I developed the action item list for this, this action item here, where they added a module to ERP system to place their materials into quarantine status. Okay. Well, they hadn't documented that they'd done that anywhere. So I had to go chase that down. They did do it. Yay. That was good. It was all good thing, but they didn't know how to document it. They just said they did it. Well, the FDA inspector is going to want to see objective evidence of that.
Absolutely.
Right. So, but that's good. They did it. But one of the things that I put in here is, and I go back to the problem statement. The problem statement, this is the beauty of how this works. Everything points back to the problem statement. You put the problem statement in, and if what you're doing doesn't align 100% with the problem statement, then what you're doing is not adequate. So, because my acceptance activities are including raw materials, components, packaging, blah, 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 all of that, then down here in my action items, I said I had to identify all procedures where acceptance activities are present. If we don't identify all of them, we're going to miss something.
Yeah.
Right? So, out of that, and then when you're developing your plan, you can predict certain things that have to happen, right? All right, we'll need to create or revise procedures to clearly address all acceptance activities, because that's a finding, and we got to do that. And most procedures, you got forms and templates, right? So we've got to make sure that we address all of those and that we clearly document acceptance activities from incoming, in process, and final, right? We got to do all those things. And then revise the procedures that we identified up here. So we tie our action items together, guys, right? So any of these that we identified, we've got to make sure that they properly reference acceptance activities. So we can't forget that part of it. And then we got to develop a plan, execute, and document the inspection of all our raw materials in the current inventory. All right, we're getting hammered. We got to make sure that we go test them all and get that done before we start resume production. So that's another thing. Now this one, you could argue that this is like 3 different action items. And I've just put them all in one because at the time that I developed it, wasn't sure. We can always revise it later if we have to.
True.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to point out as I was working this CAPA, and this CAPA is still active, I'm still working it, is action item 2, identify all procedures where acceptance activities are present. Down here in the stage 4 is where we document where our activities, where we did it, okay? And I want you to look, this right here is, when I started looking and reading procedures, these are all the procedures that I found related to acceptance activities, and it's continuous.
Wow.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 procedures that have acceptance activities in it, and none of them talk to each other. No,
Wow.
no. They're like something's missing, write a procedure for it, but it doesn't tie to anything else. And a quality management system has to be cohesive to work like a well-oiled machine. And that's another mistake that I see that becomes evident when you run CAPA correctly.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, when I did my review, my apologies for my dog. I have a 5-year-old Great Dane, and he likes to bark when people are going in front of my house. But anyway, you got all of these documents, they don't talk to each other, and that is a big source of findings, you know, when the FDA is looking at this stuff.
Yep.
All right, Cass. Hey, go outside. Hey, go outside. Don't come over here. You want to say hi to Ed?
What's his name?
Cass.
Kaz?
Cass. C-A-S-A, like Cassius.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Cass.
And I'm in a high top table, just so you know. That's how big he is.
He is a big boy.
He was 135 pounds when I took him to the vet a few months ago.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have to feed him.
Yeah. He's not a huge eater, you know, but it's still expensive, yes. I don't know what he's barking at, but hopefully he'll quit.
I don't really hear much.
Good. All right. Yeah, he's kind of doing that kind of stuff now. Hey, stop. All right. Where was I at? We were in. Okay. So back to stage 3, you get your plan, you get it signed off, then you start executing your plan. Now, in your plan, your action plan, where you're executing it, I always tell my teams there's 2 ways you can document this. But in all cases, you have to update the form and keep the form current with whatever you're doing. So in my form that I got a document reference column. So if I've got objective evidence, I need to reference it here. Now, my file names, this is what I'm teaching this client, your file name, and I don't care if it's, I teach them the file name is this. Use the CAPA number and the action item number that this file is related to. That way, when you're in front of an inspector and they say, oh, I need to see the objective evidence for action item 1, you can look at the file name and all this contained inside your folder, your CAPA folder. You can see that file name and you can pull it up, no problem. And it's all tied together.
Smart.
So that's one thing that I do. The other thing you did, which I did here, I didn't want to attach all the procedures as objective evidence because how do I know they're complete in what I reviewed? So I document it. I say see description, and I document my activities directly on the CAPA form. So when I'm reading the procedures, I'm documenting what I found in those procedures. Like this particular procedure referenced a work instruction that they've never released. It's not in their document control system.
Wow.
Right? So those are things that I find that's how I document that. And once I did this, action item 2, I'm like, oh my. When I go back up here, I had to do an extension request for stage 3 that had already been signed off because I realized you got 10 procedures. There's no way I can do that by April the 18th.
Right.
There's no way. I need at least a couple of more months to do this because it's that broken. And that's the beauty of this. You can go do revisions and whatever you need to do and clearly document it on your forms. So moving from stage 3 to stage 4, you do your documentation here. After all of these are done, once these are done, then you need to develop a verification of effectiveness plan.
Which was one of the things that was cited in that warning letter.
Yes, yes. Now, if your problem statement is not clear and your root cause is not clearly defined and accurate, then your verification of effectiveness plan is going to be very difficult to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And the common mistake that I see clients make on a verification of effectiveness plan is they verify that the procedure was updated and released, and that's their plan. That is not adequate.
Yeah.
We already know that people don't follow procedures. We just mentioned that, right? So the FDA in a verification of effectiveness plan and effectiveness check, some clients call it effectiveness check, they have to be robust. They have to be statistically sound. You have to look at a sufficient amount of records, and you have to clearly define those things. So when I'm putting a template together, and whenever I have a template, I have this blue information here that guides whoever's completing the form. So include verification plan to provide data to demonstrate that the root cause was eliminated. Well, how do you demonstrate that? Well, this plan must include definition of the data to be collected, must have a statistically justified sampling plan. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to check 3 records. Where's the statistical rationale to justify that, right? So what are the requirements of the analysis? What are you looking for? What data are you going to look at? How much of that data are you going to look at? That's your sampling plan. What's the analysis requirement? What's pass or fail? How do you know? What are you going to say that it makes it effective? And then once you get the analysis requirements, okay, we're going to look at all these elements. Then we say, okay, what is pass or fail?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. What does success look like?
Right. What does a success look like? And then who's going to collect it and analyze it? And that goes into your training. Are they proper? You can't have the janitor who doesn't know anything about it doing something that's in thermodynamics. You can't have that. So that's where all that goes into, and that's critical. So once, like in this stage 4, everyone is in agreement that, yep, all of the action items are complete, they're properly documented, and they're in the folder, and this is how we're going to do our effectiveness checks. And here's another thing, Ed, that I've seen. People think that a CAPA has to be closed before they report back to the FDA or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I found that more and more. And no, the CAPA doesn't have to be closed. Your effectiveness check may take 2 years.
Exactly.
Depends on what you put on there. You just have to have a plan. You have to review it, and you have to stay on top of it. Which brings me to the last phase, which is phase 5, is where we actually verify the effectiveness and we close the CAPA. And that is, all right, this is where we've done a proper verification effectiveness plan. Yes, we've done it. We've clearly documented it. And that documentation includes the objective evidence, includes all of the records that you looked at. If you looked at records, whatever you looked at, you need to include that in your objective evidence and attach it. So your CAPA folder, if you printed it out, may be that thick, but that's okay. That's what they expect.
Yeah.
And then another thing is, once all that's done, everybody signs off, the CAPA is closed, and you've addressed your root cause, and you've corrected a problem, or you've prevented future recurrence. So that's my 5 stages of CAPA.
Well, it's excellent, really excellent. And I love this form. I'm actually going to shamelessly copy some of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Put it into our Smartsheet CAPA solution.
Yeah.
But you've got some really good stuff here. What did I want to? Oh, you know what I didn't see is preventative action. Now I realize not all CAPAs have a preventative action, but
so that's a good point. And some of the improvements that I want to make to this form, and I think it's important for your listeners to know all of us need to be about continually improving,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? So here's two things, and you brought one of them up. Here's two things that I want to improve on this form. And I'm going to with this client. I'm going to improve it for future CAPAs. And the one thing is where I've got action items listed independently here,
Mhm.
I don't have that in my containment and immediate actions. I need to
Ah,
put that in there so that we have the dates and all that. And I want to get a report out of those being completed as well.
mhm.
Right. So that's some improvement that I want to make to this form. And then in this, we need to define probably in stage 4, and it's something maybe you and I can collaborate on, Ed, is where do we document that this is a corrective action or a preventative action?
Right.
You know, I would think we could probably do it here, but we may not know. And it's possible that your corrective action actually is preventive.
Yes. Yeah, I
It's,
agree.
it's possible that they're both. So, um, it's not here, not clearly defined, but it should be appropriate for both. And you have to consider it. Is it a corrective or preventive? And does your corrective action include preventive action?
Right.
Right. So, yeah, that's some improvements I think we can make.
I'll tell you, I love the form. The level of detail is appropriate. And that's important too. It doesn't go overboard, but at the same time, it's thorough. And
Yes.
that's a really, really good balance. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, thanks so much for sharing that and for
Oh,
your time. Hopefully, people will take a look at this and say, you know what, this is a good model for improving our CAPA
yeah,
procedure.
absolutely.
And of course, shameless plug, we're always available to help.
Absolutely.
If
Hey,
need.
one of the things that I've started promoting actually with my company is if your company just needs 5 hours a week, you know, 5 hours every couple of weeks, I'm really starting to sell that level of service where if you need some real short, quick successes, then it's a small expenditure on the client. And certainly we can find time to help you out and give you some very valuable advice.
Yeah, excellent. I like that idea. Fractional
Yep.
quality. We're aiming to do the same. We haven't really actively promoted it, but in addition to our consulting and experience and effort that we put out, we also have the validated systems on Smartsheet
Yes.
for capturing GXP records. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Awesome.
if we can be of service, Dave or I or both of us, by all means, reach out to me and we will set up a call.
Thank you, Ed. It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure to get together.
Thank you, David. Likewise, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.